Well, welcome to this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast. I'm Jen Kelly, and I'm joined today by Ken, Ian, Dan, and Paul. Now, today we're talking marketing and sales. Now, particularly where marketing stops and sales starts or should start. And we'll discuss why the marketing and sales handoff is a hard thing to do in many companies and what we can do about it. On the panel today, we've got 5 experienced marketing consultants, all with different views and experience on this topic, and we'll share what has worked and what hasn't. So 2 of us on the panel, myself and Dan, have incorporated sales experts into our own offerings so that we can offer sales and marketing services to clients. And we'll discuss how that's working out for us, for our offerings, and working out for our clients. So we'll get the point of view on the other side of the desk with Paul and Ken because they're hiring a sales team for their own agency, and we'll see how that is going and how and why they made the decision to do so. And all in good form, we'll get Ian's common sense to help us balance it all. So it's a full show, and I hope you enjoy it. So Ian, I want to start with you. So you, like me, came from the corporate world prior to opening up your own business. And you would assume, the big corporate guys would have marketing and sales, that handoff, that whole thing really smoothly figured out. But dare I say, it might not always happen that way. What was your experience in the corporate world with marketing and sales handing off to each other?
Yeah. I think this is an awesome question, Jen. And it's kind of a funny question if you've been in the circumstance that you're asking me about. I think every business has a form of dysfunction when it comes to sales and marketing. It just, no matter what business, no matter what size. And just to give a little bit of background, so traditionally I was in marketing roles in the corporations I was in. Sometimes those marketing roles, I oversaw inside sales departments. So actual salespeople that were on the phone all day, every day. And so I got a pretty good grasp in those businesses of, some of the challenges, because in a purely marketing role, we were supporting the sales team. We were creating sales collateral, sales tools. We were hearing how sales meetings with clients went, what went wrong. We would hear their gripes. And as I said, there always seemed to be some sort of dysfunction or a line that was between these. But in my view, and I think this is probably the view of everyone here, sales and marketing, or marketing and sales, because usually marketing precedes sales and bookends it on the other side too. It's actually a continuum. And it's all, it should. And it's all about the customer experience. It's actually not about sales. It's not about marketing. It's about coming to the forefront, understanding what the customer's needs are, and guiding them through that try, buy, repeat, and refer process. And sales and marketing fit really nicely in there. But my experience, I saw a lot of dysfunction in that. Because sales was on the hook very, very strongly. Their compensation was tied to closing those deals. And if they ever felt that marketing was not passing great leads, or the sales tools were not sufficient in, helping them close those deals, they were just under constant pressure, as was marketing, but for different reasons.
The big guys don't get it right.
What's that?
The big guys don't get it right all the time.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. And I think siloing was the biggest challenge in big businesses and I think that they actually have a disadvantage because the lines are clearly drawn. You hire salespeople, you hire marketers, whereas in smaller businesses, usually it starts with the business owner. They are the sales and marketing person. Then they start to hire that out, but they understand that continuum a lot better. And I didn't even talk about customer service, but everybody should be selling. Like everybody's a salesperson. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's a good insight, because sometimes we often feel or often think that the big guys, if we haven't had experience in a big corporation, that they've got it all figured out with this, right? So, Dan, I wanted to hand it over to you with the question of where does marketing hand off to sales, or more importantly, where do you think it should hand off, and where do you see it actually kind of falling off the cliff sometimes with with more of our small business clients?
Never. They should never hand it off, ever. I think the handoff is dead. I honestly do. And here's why. I think people, we have to get out of these silos of, thinking that, oh, well, we did our part and now it's going to go over to sales, and you know what's going to happen next. Things don't get done or sales don't get made. And then there's a bunch of finger pointing between marketing did this. Well, it's your fault, sales. You should have done that. The fact is that a lot of these departments just exist because we need the structure for them. But the reality is there's something bigger than that that needs to go on, which is the communication that goes above silos and goes above walls, that you have to have constant communication all the time. So a lot of times when people say the handoff, what they're referring to is a little bit of out of sight, out of mind. And that just can't work anymore. I mean, maybe it did at some point, but it definitely can't work now. Business moves way, way, way too fast so that you can't, just wall yourself off and say, well, this is marketing. We did our part. And now it's your turn, sales. You got to do your part. I don't know. Are we in 1980? But that doesn't work anymore. Like that just doesn't work. And it doesn't work here because the way that we do it is it's totally integrated in our every single week. I'll speak to this a little later on, but there's nothing I do that with our sales training person that isn't part of our entire methodology. We talk every single week. She knows exactly what I'm doing from a marketing standpoint, and I know everything that she wants to do from a sales standpoint, but the methodology has to line up. And that's where everything falls through the cracks in the current traditional scenario. There's always this, well, we did our part for the brand. Now you go do what we did, sales. Like that's bull. Like that doesn't work. Like if you're going to really support sales, you have to constantly ask them for marketing, hey, what do you need? What questions are you getting? Let's ask a little bit about what your things you've got your ear out there in the marketplace. You can help us create content all the time based on questions you're really hearing out there. So in that sense, how in the world could you just hand something off? You can't. It's impossible. You have to be able to say, every week we want to know what questions you're hearing. And if you have some other things that we've talked about in the past on this show, like some of the customer service things that tend to come in, you got to kind of work with them too and say, this is all part of the ecosystem. And walls don't exist. I mean, the walls exist on an org chart, but they don't work for this. No, handoffs are dead. That's my view on it.
and if I could jump in, I actually think handoffs aren't dead, but I think they're different. I think a lot of people think of sales and marketing and accounts receivable and customer service and production are like a relay race where you hand the baton off. And I like to think of it more as a volleyball game. I don't know if you guys played volleyball, but
yes,
it's all about the team keeping the ball up and ultimately
exactly.
leading to the success of the team. But ultimately there are unique roles where they're more macro handoffs than these big ones. But people, it's like a production line in some ways too, where you got to keep moving it to the person that has the expertise to move it forward.
Yeah. I need to jump in here because I was going to say that yes, but I have to say there are some skills that salespeople have that are very unique and that are very much needed that us in marketing either don't have or are not exposed to on a daily basis. Number one, doing the calls or the presentations or the constant rejection. We don't get that, guys. We don't create a website and have constant rejection every single day. So there's a different skill set there, as well as some of the drudgery about prospecting or following up and that kind of thing. So there is there is something to be said for there are specific sales skills that it just can't be done with a conversation. I mean, it is a certain type of skill set that you need to really win with being able to close sales.
Yeah, I think the thing is, and this may be just the term handoff in itself, I think sometimes gets a little misconstrued. But yeah, it's more like kind of what you're saying, I think, Ian, is, and it's the micro handoffs, I think, more than anything, rather than the big, like, okay, take this ball and run with it, and like some big handoff. I think it's your small little permissions that are kind of happening in the environment that you're talking about, that I think is I don't know what you call it, but it's not a handoff in the traditional sense. Yeah, I mean, to your point, Jen, everybody's got their own skill set, but they can't live in a bubble. That's not going to work. Like that's really the thing where you kind of have to say, okay, well, we're going to do our thing, and you have to obviously trust each moving part to do their thing. You don't have to micromanage each other, obviously. Yeah. But I think you got to know what everybody's doing at any given time. And if you don't know that, and there's just a lot of, well, I don't know where it's at, kind of doesn't really matter, like what skills you have at that point, in my view. Like, you could be the greatest salesperson in the world, but if I don't know what's going on from a marketing standpoint, and I can't create things from a brand standpoint to support you, it's kind of not going to mean much if you're out there on your own. You're kind of doing your own company at that point, which doesn't make for a good team. So I think it's kind of, redefining that handoff, I should say, kind of whatever you call that in the Ian description there.
HubSpot did that in 2010 approximately, where they came up with the term smarketing, and it's all driven by inbound marketing. I mean, inbound marketing changed everything because it gave customers the control. They could actually go out there and own the buyer's process way more than they've ever been able to own it. And so, because of that, roles had to change. And if they haven't, your business is either really lucky that you haven't been forced to do that yet, if you still have these silos of marketing and sales. But I think really we've got to go back and look at, what happened with, inbound marketing and its rise to prominence, and the change in consumer behaviors, really forced everything. The other thing is, you've got to look at the balance of, what is sales selling, and does that align with the mission, the goals and objectives of what the organization is trying to do? Because, if you've got misalignment between marketing and sales are, paid heavily on commission, so they want to go try to sell anything they can sell, whether it's the right thing for a business or not, and in terms of the branding and the messaging and the mission and the vision of all of the rest of the organization, you're going to run into some really big problems.
Yeah, and I think, just to piggyback on what you're saying there, Ken, is for a lot of business owners, whether they see it or not, they're usually the best salespeople. It's not like some sales team a lot of times. So if you're going to bring in other people, then they have to drink the Kool-Aid 100% in everything you are. Otherwise, to your point, if you tried to bring in a bunch of people to do like largely commission only sales, they're going to go off and do their own thing to get a buck. They're not going to worry about your methodology if you haven't sort of indoctrinated them on what it is that you're really trying to sell from a product standpoint and a value standpoint. You got to have all that. And I just think, HubSpot's probably a great example of somebody who's probably done it right. I would wager that when HubSpot gets somebody in as a customer, as an employee, there's a whole methodology to HubSpot that you've got to be able to walk the walk and talk the talk. And it's not just even about the product, in my view. It's about the whole culture there.
Yeah.
Ken, while consulting for your small business clients, what are some warning bells that you hear go off that may let you know that that business owner doesn't fully grasp that marketing isn't going to bring in sales? Like it's your website isn't going to close the deal.
Honestly, I haven't had that experience with and I tend to work with customers where historically the owner or a really small team of people who have been working with the owner for a very long time or related to the owner um, has always been the sales force. And so, I mean, I really can't speak to that a whole lot. Um, Maybe I'm fortunate, but their expectation is they need leads. They need the phone to ring. They obviously don't want to be distracted by irrelevant, form submissions or phone calls or chat conversations or whatever. But really, and historically, a lot of the work we've done, we have delivered the leads that our clients need, and then they take the ball and run with it.
Yeah.
And I think because we work with people who have always been very closely associated with or even started that business, they do a really good job of closing, and they get they get the importance of follow through and and strong communications and things like that. So I honestly haven't seen in any of those. I mean, I will say, and I don't know that this is really pertinent to this question, but I actually started in sales before, and I came into marketing because of sales, because I was doing sales for information technology solutions, and I was the only salesperson, and I was fortunate enough to be able to build up a really nice book of business doing federal, state, and local contracting, and we didn't have a marketing department per se, so we built our own. And that's what drew me into marketing, is that I thought, I really like to do this piece a lot better. And so that's where I really kind of made the shift. But, I think it's important from a sales perspective, you've got to communicate your needs to the marketing team. If you're doing requests for proposal, you need to have a great asset library that will pull, this concept called past performance, or customer references or things like that you can easily go grab that. Sometimes sales, you have to, it's not even related to sales or marketing. It's because it comes down to pricing. So you have to work with your HR department, to find out what are the costs that are associated with us having to hire and maintain employees, and do rate buildups. So because because if you're bidding on, like federal contracts, for example, you have to show your rate buildup. You have to show, here's my direct labor costs, here's my benefits package costs, here's my general and administrative costs, here's my overhead costs, and you've got to build all that up. So that has nothing to do with sales or marketing. You've got to go directly to the HR and the accounting folks to get that information, but that's very critical to the sales component.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's maybe the biggest thing that I see from a small business perspective, is that they don't factor in that rate buildup. They sell at a price that they're comfortable with. As humans, we really fall into that trap. We tend to buy what we're from people who are comfortable with, kind of what we're expecting. And as salespeople, it's really easy to fall into a trap that you sell based on what you're comfortable with, not what the market could actually bear. And so very frequently, I think one of the biggest challenges is you just don't charge enough for your services. And I'm guilty as charged.
Wow.
All of us are.
I may be really bad about that.
Oh, jeez.
But you speak on this one and about this being a red flag. I think one of the red flags that I always see is if I'm talking about marketing, the conversation inevitably will lead to, okay, well, I'd like to track your sales activity. If you want to see a business owner shrivel up into a ball really fast, that's a good question to ask if they don't have their act together, because it's not hard. I mean, I'm not asking for even the person's necessarily the name of the person you met with, but do we have some goals that we would like to achieve this month? And it's just an Excel spreadsheet, and it's just tracking activity more than anything. Did you actually meet with people after an event? Did you do the number of one-on-ones that you were supposed to do? Did you have the presentations that you were supposed to have? Why or why not? Where did that fall off? And all of that is a shared, let's see why that is together. Sometimes I will get the pushback of, oh, I know what I'm doing. I don't need to. These guys are good at what they do. They don't need to be tracked. Well, that's a bunch of baloney. I mean, no, you don't have the guts to track your own guys. That's pretty freaking pathetic. Track your guys. It's an Excel spreadsheet, damn it. Get in there and track them. And if they don't do it, don't get in their face or something about it. Just say, hey, why did this thing not, we're looking for this, we didn't get this. Let's analyze this together. Marketing and sales. So if you can't track that, if you don't want to track that, then life must be good with marketing fairy dust where everything just works out and nothing gets tracked by sales. Because I don't know how that works. Because I'm not going to put up with it anymore. That's just something where I go, if you want to know what a red flag is, that's a red flag. That's a marketing will fix my life because everything else that I just don't want to deal with. And that's not a leader. That's not a leader. I don't care how many TED Talks they gave. I don't care how many books they've written. That ain't a leader. That's somebody who wants to run and hide. And that's the red flag.
Wow.
Well, and it's interesting what you're saying there too, Dan, in that you're actually, before I comment on this, one of the things we need to remember too is that even in small business, you have B2B, business to business sales, you have B2C, business to consumer sales, you have short sales processes, you have long sales processes, and they're all different and they all require different mixtures of the team, mixtures of how that team works together. But one of the things you said, Dan, I couldn't agree more, is talking about the sharing of data, because you have to remember we're talking about one customer, like a person or a team of people from a business, depending on the type of service or product you're selling. And all they care about is that they're treated like a person respectfully, that they're not sold to outright, that they're actually presented with a solution to the problem they have. But from the company side, from our side, or from our client side, they have to have some sort of data continuum so that when there are these transitions between, we'll call them transitions, Dan, not handoff, transitions between team members, that there's data sharing, because your customer intelligence creates a better experience for your customer. And so we've all been on those calls where, especially with like a telecom or somebody like that, where you have to fix your address 800 times every single time you're on a call because their systems suck. And even though they say they're entering it, I hope but that's just kind of a pain point. But that's true in a lot of sales processes where when you transition between people, maybe it's a handoff to a technical expert to demo a software you're buying or something. If they don't understand what the previous person talked to you about and the information they gathered about your particular situation, just repeating that as a customer will soured the relationship. And so I think that's that data point that you brought up. I don't think you used that term, but I to me, that's what I was hearing is so important, because as much as salespeople hate to put stuff into systems, I know I've seen it. It's who wants to do that? But how do you then communicate well amongst a team if the team doesn't understand the customer and their needs?
Ian, you brought up something really interesting where, there are types of businesses that really don't need to have an external sales team. Restaurants is a perfect example. I mean, you don't want to ignore sales. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that at all, because, the people who are, providing you your food and all that, and at a certain level, I suppose,
would you like fries with that, sir?
The wait staff, the wait staff absolutely has a role in that, but they don't need to do things to get people to come in. That really is marketing and advertising heavy. I think about, spas, are kind of that same way. Even medical professionals, they don't really have external salespeople to get people to come in, and they have to rely almost exclusively on their marketing prowess and, whether it's referrals, whether it's, their online reputation, and quality of reviews and customer experiences and, things like that. But that's really interesting. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, and just to be slightly skewed from what you just said about medical professionals, one of the things I've seen with dentists is that when their team, even though they're not quote unquote salespeople, when their full team understands that the whole profitability of the business is to everybody's benefit, they might be compensated extra for upsells and stuff like that. Right. But if the hygienist isn't saying, hey, I noticed you have a gap in your teeth. Are you happy with your smile? Did you know we have Invisalign? Or you have a really deep groove in your tooth. Are you interested in getting your tooth sealed? And like those little things are actually to the benefit of the patient. But if nobody's, because I've in one particular practice, they didn't used to do this. And then they went through some sales training and practice development training. And now they do it. And I'm actually their patient, so I get to watch it and experience it, and it's night and day. And it's like, yeah, actually, I could use a tooth sealant because I hate getting food stuck in that tooth or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, to you made the point earlier, Ian, that everybody sells. So I'm not absolutely not saying that there's no sales organization that's required. For even the types of businesses we talked about. It's just. It's not a defined separate role where somebody is, right. You're just the salesperson. Your job is to go out there and get this stuff lined up.
Right. Not too many dentists have sales guys knocking on doors, making cold calls.
That'd be a little creepy, really.
Do you have teeth?
Wouldn't that be kind of creepy if they did?
Super creepy.
And here's the thing that you were talking about inputting. Any CRM that's worth its salt is going to allow you to, you got to put in a little bit as far as the customer journey a little bit. But I know this for a fact in services, is that once you put that in and you just kind of make that a little bit of a regular thing as much as you can, then the CRM will kind of do a little bit of the work for you with the analytics. I know Pipedrive does this. I'm sure Go High Level does this. I'm sure a lot of others do this, where it'll tell you your win rate. It'll tell you in every stage what the close rate is, not just the finish line close rate, but here's where it drops off. I can pinpoint exactly when they are going. If they clear this hurdle in the process, they will become a customer. It's not the final presentation. It's actually from a result of seeing that. I found it was, if I get them to the try, they're done. They're in. Like, I don't have to worry about it. They're sold 95% or more of the time. It's when it's discovery that if they get to discovery or not, that's the moment of truth right there. Are we going to go forward with a try or not? And if we don't, that's where it's going to happen. And that's okay. But it's a direct result of doing the tracking with your CRM to know exactly what stage and what the close rate is in that stage. And that's when you know marketing and sales should be working pretty darn close together to perfect that as much as they can, to find, just the right things to say and give. So to make that, if you can get over that hurdle and improve that stage, you're going to see things go up a lot.
And you can't improve what you don't measure, right? So that's a great point, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, in your experience, have you noticed that, particularly with small business, they either get the sales really dialed in and they're not so great at marketing, or they get marketing dialed in and not so great at sales? Have you seen that there's usually a leaning towards one or the other types of disciplines?
Yeah, like Ken said, a lot of times they tend to have the sales, because with a lot of our clients, it's the business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the marketing part they don't really understand. There's some overlap between sales and marketing. We touched on this, but marketing is about generating leads and interest. It's everything that leads up to that sales process. Marketing isn't sales. It's two different things. And sales is getting someone to purchase your product or service. Marketing is everything that generates the interest, answers the question, why should they work with your company? Why should they purchase your product as opposed to a different, why should they have you paint their house instead of your competitor? That's marketing.
Ian, you gave an example about this dental, was it a dental client that went for the sales training?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you instrumental in sort of nudging them along in that direction?
Not at all. No, it was
Not
part
at
of
all.
their practice consultant that they were working with. So yeah, some of them have practice consultants which are guiding them in how do we create a really great experience for our customers and deliver excellence every single time somebody comes through the door. And then usually they reach out to a marketer as well to help them bring people into the door.
Gotcha. In your experience, have you run into any of the clients that kind of have a bit of a blind spot towards the sales side of things?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a whole continuum, and every business is different. But one of the challenges I think is that depending on the size of the business, you either have a dedicated sales team, or you have a nuanced, I would call them technicians with sales added to them, meaning they go out, they service the client. In fact, my father-in-law was he serviced appliances. This was back in the day. He's retired now, but he used to service appliances in people's homes, and he was given the task of upselling basically insurance on the service, right? And they were compensated for that. But I thought that's a really great example of how every person can be a salesperson if they're given the right incentive. But I don't think I answered your question. What was your question again, Jen?
You're doing great.
Sounded really good.
It sounded good.
You could have stopped there. And
I should be a sales guy.
I should have said
I thought that was good.
That's great. Sounds great. Nice smile too.
Yeah. The thing I think that's really important to remember is that, and again, it's different in every business. You have to understand your business. You have to it's helpful to have a marketing consultant come in and be able to help a business navigate through this process. But usually there's a very, clear in a lot of businesses. So clear handoff, I'll use the handoff or set or bump or spike to the sales guys, meaning, in this particular circumstance, I'm working with a carpet cleaning company. The task that we've been given, the business owner said, I need you to bring in 5 times the value of my ad spend in leads, qualified leads. And so they were able to give us some data related to that. But the way we do that is through know, like, trust, try. There's probably a try in there. Mm-hmm. And then that buy is the handoff to the sales team, the closers, the guys that are on the phone for carpet cleaning. But we have a very clear, this is what our role is as your marketing partner, and this is where the handoff is. And the reason we're super clear on that is because we need to understand how are we going to be successful in supporting you, client A? Because the only way we'll have a long-term relationship and make you ultimately successful is if we can measure and if we can succeed in that measurement. And so that handoff is key. But sometimes in other businesses that know, like, trust, try buy, the sales are in different spots. The sales team would be brought in at different spots, and sometimes it's then handing it back. Like for a long sale, say you're selling something that takes 2 years for the company to decide on. Like, I've been in businesses like that. You're selling a very expensive IT solution or something like that, and so you're planting the seed. The salesperson usually gets brought in for a discovery call, but then it's ultimately, how do you both nurture that customer or that prospect through marketing and through the salesperson making touch points throughout that marketing is actually, opening the door and saying, customer, here's a white paper. And if they open the white paper, it's a cue for the salesperson to go, oh, they opened the white paper. Hey, did you find that white paper interesting? And can I answer any questions, and being of service to them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a little bit more about just even in the dental clinic. So it feels like there would be an oscillation between marketing and sales. So it brings the lead in. Okay, we get the appointment. Now the person is showing up. It's really going to have an effect on their, let's call it, enjoyment of their visit. Is the receptionist pleasant to them? Are they seen on time? Is the hygienist, does he or she explain everything? What's the actual dental visit like? When it comes time to pay, are you just like a number, or are they, taking care of you? So, sales gets them in the door, but, marketing can drop the ball there too, if the whole experience in that kind of situation is just not
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah. And then after the buy, like in that circumstance, that would be the buy. You come in, you get your dental treatment done. You have a great experience, hopefully. But part of the role that I see marketing as well is that repeat and refer. So how do you ensure you have patient or client retention? Having that follow-up email or text go out that says, how was your experience today, Mr. Smith? And whatever they come back with, the team has to be ready to respond in positive or negative, or, be able to help them. But then also, it's usually marketing's role to help the practice create a referral program so that your sales team of thousands of patients are out there telling their friends actively and family and colleagues about how great their experience is, whether it's on social media, whether it's giving them a coupon for $50 off their first treatment or cleaning or something like that then continues to generate this snowball effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
There's one thing here I want to just add, because I think we kind of danced around it a little bit, but everything we do in this process of marketing and sales, there's going to be proof points where they're going to ask us questions about certain things that come up all the time. And I'll just use our own industry as an example. You'll see common patterns about what they ask you about in order to move forward. And you better have the things that they are looking for right then and there, like not in a week. And I'll give you an example. Like, there's many times where I have been asked, oh, do you have any samples of your work? Well, I better not be like, like, no, that's pretty bad. I better be able to go on somewhere where I have a repository of those samples, and I can just kick them right out within an hour. If I don't have that, I better get my ass in gear and get that thing up, because it's going to happen again. If it's, I need references. Okay, go on LinkedIn and see like 45 people who have recommended me, or here's a PDF. Like, but just be ready. Like, be ready. Don't be like, oh yeah, I gotta get this in. Who do I know? You better have that ready. If it's a proposal, the biggest waste of time is putting together a proposal. Put a damn template together. Get it ready. Change out the names. You do the same products, the same set of products probably. Change it out. It's okay. You can do a little bit of customization. And that even goes for the kinds of things that we all do here on this call. We have our strategy documents, we have our proposals, we have different things like that. Guess what? Some of those things overlap, and that's okay. Like, it's going to come up again. You got to be ready for all those things, because they just waste time if you're not ready to have those things in a row. But once you do, you can go pretty far, but nothing bottlenecks this process more than not having those proof point question documents ready. And you had better be ready to have that go within the day, if not within the hour, because the minute that slows down, that's what you got to address, whether it's marketing and sales or both, so that you don't have that problem.
And Dan, that's a perfect example of the intermeshing of sales and marketing, because the frequently asked questions that the salespeople are hearing need to be fed to the marketing department or marketing team, so that they can put those frequently asked questions on the website that then feeds SEO, right? Like, it's this, when you see the team working together, it's an incredible thing.
It is. It absolutely is.
So Dan, you, like me, you brought in sales professionals to aid in the services that you offer your clients. How's that going? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I won't lie. I kind of resisted it for a while. I did, because I've had in the past. We tried to do something in another business I had where we did it the wrong way. I mean, we all in that business know it. It's we did a commission only kind of thing, and we thought it was really good. And there's 6 or 7 people, and they're all going to go out and sell our stuff, and woo, let it rain, baby. No, it did not happen that way. And I think part of the problem is that they just didn't buy into everything we were about, and they couldn't sell it as well as we could. I mean, that's the fact of the matter, is they just couldn't sell as well, because they didn't know the methodology, and they didn't know where we began. They couldn't speak to our positioning. They couldn't speak to our point of difference. All they could do was to say, hey, do you have this problem? Well, we've got this product. Okay, yeah, you're kind of leaving out, like, I don't know, 90% of the story right there. Like, because that's just a product sell at that point. You're leaving out the brand. And so I think when I revisited it, and I was approached by someone that I knew, and I said, and she goes, well, can we do some stuff together? And I said, in this case, we can, because I've known you for years. I know that you know the methodology that we have been indoctrinated with. She's a fellow duct tape marketing consultant. So she gets it. You know, she not only sells products and services, she's selling our positioning. She's selling our, they've got to get the whole thing, the whole system, and she gets it. She gets the system. There's no, education of some random sales guy who sold this widget over here, but doesn't get our method or doesn't get our system. So that kind of, her name's Magda. Here I said, hey, Magda, I think let's do this. The cool thing about that is that she actually took the initiative to not only, she knows our marketing system, but then she took the initiative to create her own sales system to literally overlay on top of our marketing system, so that every stage of the marketing system meshes with the sales stage. And that was like, oh, love it. So I'm excited about, that we can offer that sales training that she does, but also I'm even more excited about the fact that she is training them the right way, not only in what they can sell, but also the way that we do things as far as our marketing and sales system. So in answer to your question, before Magda, I had a marketing system. After Magda, I have a marketing and sales system. And I have never had that in the last, I don't know how many years. And it's beautiful. And the most important thing is I don't have to do the work of sales training, because I may know how to do that, but you'd have to put me in front of a boiling pot of lava to get me to do a sales training thing in front of somebody. It's something I know how to do, but I should not be doing, because I got other things to do.
I was gonna say,
she
how do
does
you
it
really
well.
feel about that, Dan?
Yeah, well, nobody should be doing anything that they can do, and I can do that, but it's not the best thing I can do. And she excels in it, and that's the best part of it. Is she has a passion for it, she's good at it, and she wants to push us to be better as a system.
Mm.
You can count the number of salespeople who do that on one hand, and I think that's good for us as a sales thing, but it's also good for our clients to understand. To an earlier question, they understand after they talk to her what the difference is between marketing and sales, and she's good at it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Ken, I want to get your perspective. So I understand that you guys have hired a sales team to bring in deals for your own business. Could you walk us through how you decided on the team to do that? What made you think you should go in this direction? Just share a little bit about your journey on that.
Yeah, well, I've actually done it a couple of different times and used a couple of different companies. The first time I did it was just trying to find a way to generate a little bit more activity. I'm really comfortable doing inbound marketing. Sometimes inbound marketing generates all the leads that you'll ever need. Sometimes you need to give it a kick in the butt. And so I wanted to try to take things to the next level. So I hired a company to call from a list that, we had kind of pulled together of, targeted prospects. It didn't go so well. But I was impressed with the way the company operated. It just, it just turned out to be really frustrating. I spoke at a national conference. I was a keynote speaker, and then I did a 2-hour workshop. And, the people who attended that knew me very well because I'd also done a lot of education, for that particular association. And so I didn't have the bandwidth to follow up with 1,000 people. So I needed to hire somebody to do some of that basic blocking and tackling, to call in, see what people had the interest. Would they be interested in having a conversation with me? In that case, I'm still the salesperson, but they're doing a lot of the outbound calling and warming up process for me to deliver, qualified, meetings, to where we can have a conversation to see if we're a good fit. That worked really well. Then COVID hit and things kind of slowed down. But so now since then, I've got a new program in place. I'm really excited about. Too early to specify any results. But I also currently have a company because I want to diversify the types of businesses that we have. And we've talked about this in past shows about the difference between a client and a customer. And, in our business, clients require custom work, and it's hard, and you can only legitimately effectively service a certain number of those people or a certain number of those clients before you start to hit a wall. But because of COVID, I created more productized offerings of great things that we do that took our intellectual property and our knowledge and kind of baked it in and created packages for businesses that just were hammered with COVID. And so I've hired and so Dan mentioned it earlier. I mean, it's more of a product sale. So I've got a company right now calling, on behalf of that aspect of my business to, and they're actually closing some deals. They're doing the whole thing. Now, the biggest challenge is, and this goes, from a sales perspective, the salespeople need to have a deep understanding of what the business wants to sell. Absolutely, fundamentally, because if you don't communicate that and you don't reach agreement upon that, they're going to deliver. Oh, somebody wants to do this e-commerce system. Okay, great. We don't really do a lot with e-commerce. We can do it, as Dan was talking about. We have done it, but that's not the business I want. I want people who need SEO and an integrated digital marketing solution, outsourced marketing solution, or I want somebody who needs a lead generation system. Like, I got to have people coming in the door to get my restaurant started back up again. Okay, a text message marketing system where we've already got all of our knowledge and expertise baked into that. It's perfect. So, but I don't want to go do custom social media posts for an industry I know nothing about. That takes a lot of work, and it's 3 times as expensive, and the profit margin gets sucked out of it. But if I can go to work where I've already got a repository of things that I know work really well, and I can resell that over and over and over again. And the beauty of solutions is, and this is really critical, is you're going to make a lot more money in your business if you can find a way to create a solution and sell it over and over and over again, and get really good at selling that and delivering that over and over and over again. Profitability goes way up, your cost of implementation goes way down, customer satisfaction remains high, and so it's a real challenge to explain all of that and get the right sales force in place. And I struggle with it. I mean, the outsourced solution we're using right now, I'm still disappointed, but I still have hope. But you got to try.
Yeah.
You've got to the beauty of what we do, I mean, is your goal is you should be able to build up enough cash flow to where you can afford to do some small experiments and see what's going to work and be able to take your business to the next level. Sometimes you have to try things to figure out and learn from your failures. Learning from your failures is the most important thing for any business owner. You've got to fail. You will fail. It's the nature of business. You're going to have failures. The success is what can you do as a result of learning from your failures.
Well said. Well said. Paul, I want to throw the last question over to you. So what advice would you give to a small business owner listening to this episode who thinks they need some more help understanding? Is it a marketing problem? Is it a sales problem? Is it both? How can they figure that out in their business? What are a couple of things they should look for, and a couple of next steps they could take?
Well, if they're getting leads and calls and form fills and they're not closing those, that's a sales problem. Yeah. If they're not getting that, it's probably a marketing problem. And I think that a lot of small business owners, we've talked about this, is it, this shift to inbound marketing, not like it's something new, but there is a buyer journey, and the customer has more control. By the time a customer contacts a business, they've probably done 90% of their research. And so from a small business, from a marketing perspective, you have to get in front of them during the different stages of that buyer's journey. And that a lot of small businesses, I think, don't really understand how important that is. Maybe they do, but that's where you have to start, especially if you have, like I said, you have an issue where you're not getting calls or form fills, then you have an awareness problem, and that's where marketing can help. If you are getting calls and form fills and people aren't buying, then you don't necessarily have a marketing problem. You have a sales problem or some kind of internal problem that needs to be addressed.
Or you're trying to sell something that people just don't want.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, just because you can make it doesn't mean people are going to buy it.
Oh, that's heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is.
It's one of those things that, it's kind of like the stuff that we do, though. It's I don't know, maybe it's easier for us because we create things all the time. But I think you kind of have this iterative, I can't say that word.
Iterative.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The thing where you're constantly, that it's never like, voila, here's the curtain and it's perfect and we never have to change it. It's always changing. I mean, you got to just be like, okay, well, I'm going to just rapid fire prototype this thing. I'm going to put it out in the world. just before this call, we were talking about a service offering I put together. I don't know if it's going to be good or not. I mean, I could put it out there and maybe like 2 people like it. But you know what? If I get some feedback and they go, yeah, you know what would be really good is if you added this. Okay, then by the end of the day, I'm going to put it on. Like, I mean, that's just the way that I think this stuff works well. And
Or if
the
you can
more
sell
of us
it
that can do that.
for $100,000.
What's that?
What's that?
Or if you can sell it for $100,000, you only need 2
Oh, that
people,
too.
right?
Oh, that would be nice.
That works. That works well. Well, great. Guys, thanks for joining me today in our conversation about marketing and sales. It's probably a good place to wrap up. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.